to help him. He never made it back when he got back. Everything they did was just for visit to a farm.
Man, what's your full name? You said you had to march like...
It's kind of like Army time. They divide us in 3 divisions: ABC, Company ABC, the oldest in A, the middle age, the younger children. And everything we did, we had to march. We had to learn how to march. We went to march to school, we had roll call, march to school, march to dining room for our meeting, and back again. And it was just kind of that routine stuff. We ate in our dining room like family style.
Did you have to wear a uniform?
Sorta, yes.
What did it look like, the uniform that you wore?
Oh, bloomers. Bloomers, long socks, we had black skirts and a midi top.
Your grandmother told you her childhood about the Oaks.
No, not really. Because when we had my dad's mother, well, she was sickly. She had 3 other kids where she stayed most with her daughters.
And what was her name again?
Lydia, Charles, Dupree.
Dupree. So were the Otos, were they?
The pamphlet and then they all talk.
When did the Comanches, the Otos dance?
When did they dance?
Yeah, how many dances? Why do they dance?
Well, they carry on their traditions like everyone else. They have their annual dance in July. But all during the year, they'll maybe have a benefit dance or a birthday dance or something like that. Yeah.
What is the oldest traditional dance the Otos have?
The ones I used to know, I don't ever see anymore. I know one was the duck dance. I never see that anymore. And the rest of them's about what they have around here, the plains trombone or the dance about the same.
What was the duck dance? What was it? Why did they have the duck dance?
Well, I guess it was kind of a, what would you call it? I don't know what the words describe it, but they kind of follow the leader, and they dance, they quack, quack, quack. You know, going from one side to the other, and they had to follow each other. But I don't ever see that anymore.
What's the origin of the duck dance?
I don't know nothing about that. I just remember seeing it.
Why do the Comanches dance?
In the past or of today?
Both.
Well, some of the dances they had were for wartime. Some was for happy times. What do they call it? I guess like a marriage ceremonial dance that they have. Have you ever seen one of that?
I saw Indian marriage, but I never seen no ceremonial dance. Goes with it. I've seen the marriage.
Okay.
We're gonna have one Sunday morning.
I have one Sunday. Okay. I have never seen the dance myself, but I've been told about it, and I have seen the moccasins that are wore. They're beaded all on the bottom, and they're only wore once.
That for the marriage?
Mhm.
Now, does the man and woman both wear these moccasins?
No, just the woman.
Just the woman.
Mhm.
What does the man wear?
You know, I really don't know. Like I said, everything that I'm saying, being younger, has been told to me, and I've never seen one of these ceremonies. But my aunt that you're going to talk to later, she probably could tell you more about it.
Did the Otos have a marriage ceremony dance?
Yeah, but I never seen one. And just what I heard too, that they.
Well, wasn't the bear sacred to the Otos in the back?
I don't know. I don't study that way back there.
Because
So
I have been with her to some of her dances, and I noticed something that I don't is their bear claw garments that they wear. They're beautiful. And I noticed the Oto men have them. I guess they've been handed down. But I have seen some beautiful ones when I saw them through the Oto. When they were having something. And it was part of their traditional wear.
They have, I forget how many clans they have in our tribe.
Yeah.
And like when they have events like this, a powwow, it has to, all have to be from the same clan. But now this is getting modern. They don't do that, but it's clans. I said, my uncle was telling me that your powwow goes through just fine. You get all the principles of the same clan. And bear is one of the clans, and the eagle, the snake. But there's nobody living now belonging to the snake clan.
Which clan are you a member?
I'm eagle. We follow your dad's side family.
You said there's no snake clan.
There isn't. There's one lady left, I understand, and she didn't have no children, nobody, and so they don't have anyone in the snake clan.
Where does she live?
Hmm?
Does she live in Oklahoma or in Nebraska?
Here in Oklahoma. I can't remember the name. But my cousin drew one of those seals that they had all the clans on it, the Oto seal. I got one at home too, I didn't bring it. But it has all, that beaver, elk, with the bear and the eagle and owl. That's
Any traditions that the Eagle clan has that the Bear clan or the Owl clan doesn't have?
not that I know of. They all run about the same, but it's just different families, you know, they follow their dad's side. Whatever their dad was, the family follows them in the clan.
Are you allowed to marry into your own clan?
Well, they used to, I guess, but now that's a lot of that is modern time has really changed a lot of it.
Some Indian tribes say that their fan system has become more social. Is it that way with the Oto?
Yeah. Everything has changed, and I don't remember a lot of things that's going on now that we did as a child that I'd seen. So they kind of switch. Different tribes, they take their songs and change them into their words in their songs, and I've seen all that going on. So these guys that can really sing and they learn the words, they know each other's songs. Then down here they take them and change them, or some other tribe would take their Comanche songs and change into their language.
Do you sing?
No. Can't hear it.
Doris, what clan are you a member?
There again, you need to ask my aunt. I'm not sure whether the Comanches have clans, but I don't know the names of them like I should. And Helen may know even more than me. I know society. They have societies like the Black Legging Society, and
That's close.
is that kind?
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm not really familiar with. Like I said, when my aunt gets here, she'll be able to tell you more about the traditional history. I know some of it, but I hate to say something and not really know how to elaborate on it.
Is religion and medicine something I should stay away from?
You mean like peyote?
Yeah. Well, just the traditional religion.
They have that in almost every tribe. I don't know too much about it. I've been invited about 3 or 4 times, but I've never attended one.
I know what my dad would say. It'd be best not to get involved in it.
What about medicine? Any medicine that used to say herbal medicines? That's still practiced in tribes today.
Very few. in our tribe, they pass it on to the family. The man, the father was a medicine man. He passed it on to his son. But we have one lady in our tribe that's a medicine doctor. And there are two, I think. That's all I know. But I was asking her one time what was the difference between Indian tobacco. I didn't know they used Indian tobacco. And I saw some somewhere, but they were expensive. And she was going to show me, but she forgot where she replaced it. I wanted to see the difference between tobacco and the Indian tobacco. And she had just had somebody, and she said she forgot where she put it. I said, well, it's all right. I just kind of wanted, like she had it handy, and wanted to see what it's like. But go ahead with it.
So the Comanches, do they have the medicine man or the medicine woman?
Medicine man.
Did that affect your subject? Comanches?
My grandfather was
My grandfather was a medicine man, and it's always been kind of a
interview.
he was, and like I said, his daughter will be the one that you'll be interviewing a little bit later.
Did I stay away from that subject, or?
No, as long as you don't get into detail with it, because they won't go into detail. They'll just tell you that it was done, and that my grandfather, even when I was little, I can remember certain things had to be done a certain way, or he just, when we went to see him, there were certain things that had to be done. I remember I used to kind of have a fear of him because he was a very stern man and a very proud man.
What was his name?
What was his Indian name?
Oh, can you take this?
You know what? All I know is Kadina. I heard them always call him Old Man Kadina. And his first name, I never heard him called by his first name. It was always Kadina. And he died. I was older than that, 6, 7, when he died. My grandmother, she died before him, and I remember very little of her, but I do remember a lot of my grandfather. And I do remember that he did have medicines that he did have fixed up. I remember seeing the bundle once and getting spanked by my mama real bad for being so nosy. I went to looking where I wasn't supposed to look. And, just being a kid, you're curious. And he had 3 bundles, and they were always like this, to a point. And I don't know what was inside of them. One time I was going to go and untie, and that's when I got spanked. I remember that. I remember that spanking very well. And my grandfather never knew that I went near it. And I remember I was kind of sick, and I started having seizures. And I know my mother used to say that sometimes she thought that my sickness was caused because of me going in those bundles. Whether that's true, I don't know. I had a lot of things done, research done. They checked my head, and they never figured out why I had seizures. And I still have epileptic seizures today. But that's just kind of what she felt. And I had a lot of medical problems after that. I went into something that I shouldn't have. So that could be myth, or that could be for just the real thing. I don't. I believe to myself, I believe that maybe there could be something to it. But like I said, as a child, I didn't know. But I do remember that he set them in one here and one here. And these are memories coming as a child when I could see him.
You keep them in a special room or special.
He kept them in a special area in the house. It was a closet. That's why I was so curious. I wanted to go in that closet, see what was in there. And he had other things in there too.
Do the Oto have a naming ceremony for the children?
Oh, they used to years ago, but up now, well, I guess they still do, but they do it in family, all family together.
What was the old ceremony? Do you know? What was the old ceremony? Do you know?
They had marriage ceremonies too, but I never seen one. I quite sure about it.
What about the Comanches? Is there a ceremony to name the children?
Yes, there is. But I don't, like I said, I don't know the name of it. My aunt again will be able to tell you more.
They're going to have one tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a lot more ceremonial things that I do not know. I remember seeing them, but like I said, I'm a lot younger than she could probably tell you.
Well,
going back to what Potterman's name was, I don't think he had but one name. He was like Cynthia. My mother had but one name. Indians back yonder only
I had one name.
They didn't have the given name until the white man came, the cavalry came and made their first legal roll, and that's who gave them their first name.
Who we need to
And they
talk
were,
to, huh?
they were usually named
She's been
by
studying
whoever was that went and made the inventory of that area. Usually who gave them their name. Like my daddy had two names because the two men that took the survey, they both liked him, and each one of them gave him part of his name. He wound up Benton Dudley Paddaker. See, with Paracle here. He wound up with two given names.
no. No.
Oh, I'm
I need,
sorry.
no. I'm about.
Yeah, finish. He needs to talk to you.
I told them it's one to talk to.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
I'm,
you, Joe.
I'm too tired. I can't get up now.
I come to ask you, Helen, do you have any idea where Carl Moe's at?
No, I didn't
Lee
see.
says he has not seen him all day.
Well, I haven't seen him today.
Did they spend the night last night?
Well, Dick spent the night. I don't know. He took us home and he came back. So I don't know whether they spent the night or not. See, Dick stayed because he had to raise that flag.
Yeah, I knew he was raising flags. But Aunt Lee said he hasn't seen them, and the kids went up there this morning and they were not there.
I don't know.
So, I don't know what's happened to them.
I haven't seen him.
Well, have you got a moment? We introduce you?
Well, this is Audrey. I don't know her last name.
Jones now.
Paddaker Jones.
Yeah.
And what's
Joe Todd.
Joe Todd. He's with the Oklahoma Historical Society.
Oh, really?
And
So-
he's doing videotapes and recordings of some of the history on Comanches. I'm gonna let him talk to Aunt Nellie.
Yeah.
Get some, when she gets here, and be able to tell some about.
Well, you know, really, our family, like her grandpa, and what they were more or less raised out around Waltersville, eastern part of the state, which you take that many years ago, it was a whole day's trip. We had another Aunt Wakey, that lived out there too, and it was an all-day horseback ride for Daddy to go visit his sister, you know.
He wants to get it down.
Oh, no,
Everything you
come
say.
on.
Oh, come on.
No, have a
Ain't
seat.
it like getting down there, Lord help us. But they were just raised in particularly
Put this over here on the list. I'll learn by listening.
particularly two different lifestyles. My daddy came from the Blue Beaver Creek area here, you know, around here at Cache, and they were the farmers. That's what they done for a living, was farm. After, of course, you know, they run out of the buffalo and everything to hunt, they had to go to farming, and that's what he done. And he did not participate in any way in any of your, like she was talking about the medicine man and that type of stuff. My daddy did not participate in that at all. He more or less went the white man way. after
What's
they
your
were.
what's your full name?
Audrey Jones, Audrey Mae Parakovit Jones, or of course at Anadarko they have, they use Parakovit and also Paddaker in parentheses.
Parakovit?
It's Parrieckivit. And then, but we were all called Paddaker because that's how the white man pronounced that name. And of course my daddy was Kusapia, son, and he had the name Parakovit from his uncle, which was his mother's brother. She had no children. The uncle had no children of his own, and he needed somebody to be his heir because at the time he was a chief, and he had no son to hand down the chief, the honors to. So he needed a son. So his sister gave him my father. So that's where the name Parakovit comes from. And he had the markings when Daddy was a small child. I don't know how old, but he had pierced here on the cheekbones. He had his ears pierced. He had pierces in his chest and on his shoulder blades, where he would have wore the gold rings when he become chief, which never come about because they came in and we had statehood and took their land, and so that never come to pass. But that was the intentions when he was. I won't say born, I don't know that, but it was done while he was small. He stayed with his mother, the best I understand, until he was weaned, until she kept him while he was a baby. But then as soon as he was old enough that he could leave home, well then he went to live with his uncle. And he took up.
What was your uncle's name? Or his uncle's name?
Parakovit. He only had the one name, Parakovit. And he lived on Blue Beaver Creek, which is 4 miles from this area here. It's 4 miles east and 2 miles south. That's where the man lived until he died. And he died in 1926. I know the date because I was told the story often. I was 6 months old when he died. And I was very blonde-headed because my daddy married a white woman, which I turned out to be a blonde-headed Indian. I turned out blonde-headed when I was little. And this old man, Parakovit, which was we also called him Grandpa too. So I was fortunate. I had two grandmas. Of course, now he died when I was only 6 months old, so I never knew him. But then his wife lived on, and she didn't die till about 45 or 46 when she died. But she was always grandma too. And my other, which was my real grandmother, Kusapia, she only lived a mile up the creek. So either way I went, I had a grandma,
When's
Daddy,
your birthday?
Audrey.
No, when is your birthday?
Oh, when 11th of January, 26th. So either direction I went, I had a grandma's house to go to. And but I was
on Beaver Creek.
Heritage and all of this. So he talked quite a bit about it. And my daddy died in 1952. So I was grown. So I remember very well all the stories he used to tell us about what happened. But anyhow, his
Some of those stories.
well, this ain't a story. This is a fact. His grandfather, at the time that they took his land away from him, he had 1,000 head of cattle and 1,000 head of horses. And of course, they had to get them off of this land because they were going to open it up for statehood. They had a run in Oklahoma. Anybody that come and staked out the land and made an improvement, it become theirs. That's how Oklahoma was settled. But they just rounded up. The cavalry did. This was a very sad part in their life. Because the cavalry just come and rounded up those animals and just shot them in school. And he was taken. The government insisted that he go to school. Of course, they insisted that all the Indian children went to school, and he had to go to Fort Sill Indian School. They had a fence around it. It was a boarding school. And they had it fenced in, and they claimed it was child-proof fence. I don't know whether it was some type of fence similar to what a cyclone fence is now, but it's supposed to have been child-proof. But my father managed to get out during the night, and either climb over or crawl under, or however he managed to do, but he managed to get away, and he came back home. But he was smart enough to know if he come straight home, they would know where to come and find him. So he like stayed just up and down the creek. He just lived up and down the creek for 2 or 3 weeks, and then he figured, well, they're not looking for me no more, so he would go home. And it wasn't long till they were back and they got him. They done it through, and so this is one of the things that a lot of people didn't want. Like I said, they were poisoned in Kansas City, but they did get well. They did not die. I could not tell you the date this happened. I would say somewhere 1907, 1906, somewhere in the early 1900s anyhow. This could be checked for history too.
Whenever the Comanche broke up because of smallpox,
this was before that. This is the early 1800s.
Okay.
Not early, probably around the middle 1800s. This is that's why you had Comanches in Oklahoma. You had Comanche along. It had been revised, and they had redone the ports. But all now they were, most of them were pretty decorative. They had decorative columns to hold the roof up for the porches and all. I mean, they were nice homes, and they were built around in the vicinity of 1900. The house, of course, it has been changed. There's been 2 rooms added on to it, but the house that my daddy lived in is still standing. Like I said, it's been changed. It's been remodeled, but it's been paneled on the inside, which with the old original wood is covered up, but the house is still standing. And we still own the 160 acres that was allotted to my daddy, who was Benton Paddaker. There was 4 of us children still own the 160 acres.
Where's that located?
It's 4 miles. We gave him a birthday, and we gave him his birthday according to what his mother always told him he was born. She said that she was out picking corn, gathering corn for the winter, which normally the corn is gathered sometime in October. And so she was out gathering corn, and she knew that it was time, to have him. And so she went home and had him. So we figured, well, he had to be born sometime in October. So we just had random picked the middle of the month, 15th of October, and called that his birthday. And that's how he celebrated his birthday then, all of his life. But that was the closest date that so none of them really ever knew, because there was no month, no calendars, and no, days of the week for them to go by, because they had nothing to keep up with. So they done it all by season.
And what was her name, your grandmother?
Kusapia.
Kusapia.
You haven't got it down there? Have you got down Talkywan? But like I said, I've always known that we always known who our real grandmother was, and we always knew the other was the adopted grandmother. We were always told that all of our lives. And my daddy, his first marriage was to an Indian lady. But she died, and when she died, then he married my mother, which was white. And my daddy was the first of any of the children, as far as I know, that married. In fact, I know he was the first that married a white person. But then my Uncle Clinton, which was just younger than my daddy, he also married a white lady. But before that, they all stuck with the tribe.
Do you speak Comanche?
No, sir, I do not.
Mom.
Okay. No, I do not. My daddy did very fluently. He also was a very good interpreter from the Comanche language to the white language. When the Dio Mission Church was formed, my daddy was an interpreter for the church for many years, because they had both Comanche and white people in the area that went to that church. The preacher was a German. He was Dio, and they named the church Dio Mission for him. That's what the church was named after the preacher. And my daddy named his first son Dio, out of respect for the preacher, because he thought, so highly of the preacher that they had. So that's what I was saying about, we knew nothing about powwows. We knew nothing about the peyote meetings, the peyote parties, or whatever they called, that some of them went to. We knew nothing about the medicine man. We did not practice none of that because my daddy practiced the Christian way, which, was a doctor.
Yep.
He just didn't go. He didn't do any of the things that was really custom. He got out of the Indian custom fairly early in life. So, believe it or not, this is going to be my first powwow I have ever attended in my life, and I'm 62 years old. So I'm learning too.
As a small girl, what were some of the chores you did?
Oh, well, now my daddy was a full-fledged farmer. He had cows, we had chickens, we always had a garden. As far back as I can remember, there was always, just like any other country child, we milked cows, we had chickens, we done it just like anybody else. Maybe you were going to say the white man way, so I can't help you out there because, that's the way I was raised.
Did you follow any of the traditions described?
No, I can't say he did, because like I said, now he went strictly the farmer route.
Yeah. So you were basically raised in a white society.
Right. See, because my mother was white.
What was her name?
She was Hazel Carney.
Hazel Carney.
She was half German and half Dutch. So.
And where'd you start the school?
Oh, got here at Cash. I graduated out of Cash.
So you went to Cash Public School?
Right, all my life.
You never been to the Indian school?
No.
And your father did not teach you the native language?
No. We heard it. I could understand it growing up as being around my mother. He talked it to his mother. He talked it to his stepmother. He talked it to his first wife's family, which were Comanche Indians, and they're from around Faxon. He talked it when he was around them. He talked it at church with the church people that did not speak English language. I heard it. I never spoke the Comanche language, but I could understand. I had a beautiful relationship with both grandmothers. You didn't have to say word for word, but we just understood each other. And I didn't even think about it as a child growing up that we really wasn't speaking to each other. But what we could say, Indian can say one word and it can mean a whole paragraph, and that's the way my grandmothers, both of them were, and so we really communicated without speaking the language. They could tell us, now they didn't either one of them speak English, but still I could understand them. They could make me understand, partially with sign language and partially by the gestures that they made or just how they said it. And if you done something wrong, you definitely knew that. Made themselves clear,
Yeah.
But we really didn't just sit down and rattle off a bunch of words, because it didn't need a bunch of words.
Yeah. When they died, did they have a traditional Christian funeral?
I would say yes, both of them did. In fact, even the Paracovet man, which died when I wasn't, but the only thing that was not traditional, which they done, and my adopted grandmother did do, when her husband died, Indians believed if you had a wound, whenever you had to wound yourself when you were mourning. For instance, she had the scars to prove it that she'd done it. When her husband died, she took a butcher knife and slashed the deep part of the meat on her arms, plumb to the bone. Just sliced herself open. Her idea was that whenever these wounds healed, her heart, her broken heart, would also be healed, and she wouldn't mourn him no more. She did do this. So then later, she had another son to die which was also an adopted son that they took in. In fact, they swapped him a horse for him from people that were just traveling through the country, and they needed a horse. They had four or five kids, and they didn't need the kids, but they needed a horse. So my grandpa gave them a horse for the boy, and he was raised as theirs. And so, I mean, you know, he became an adopted son. His name was Irvin Paddaker, and when he passed away before Kimaka, which was the adopted grandmother, before she died, Irvin passed away, and my daddy, just as soon as he heard of Irvin's death, he took off across the creek and up to her house to gather up all the knives. He gathered the butcher knives. He even brought the axe and the hoe back to our house because he didn't want her to have anything sharp to cut herself with, because she would have done this again because she had lost a son, you know. And so even though you're talking 40 years later, her customs was so deep, she would have still done this again, all over again, you know. So her heart, they thought if you didn't bleed, then your heart could never heal. You would just keep on mourning, you know. The grief would go on. But then once you had these deep wounds and you bled, then when it healed, you were healed. You know, I mean, you know, your heart, you didn't grieve no more. That's the only thing now. Of course, my daddy did not do it. He did not do it when his first wife died. So he didn't really believe in the customs at all, but that's kind that was practiced, you know.
In this program,
Kusapia,
she's listed here 1, 2, 3, 4 times.
Yes, because that's how many husbands she had.
She had 4 husbands.
Well, yeah. Yeah. See, Takiwan. This is the first one, and this is my daddy down here. This is
Okay, yeah.
He was her fourth child.
Yeah.
And then she had Clint. Tokwati, now that's, you know, but I don't know why he wasn't a pig, but he wasn't. They thought it was because he was younger, and he was her brother. They wanted, you know. So he figured that her brother wanted the younger one to mold in his own image or whatever, you know, had him like he wanted. But then this Takiwan, evidently he was a much older man, because he had already had a wife and these 2 children before my grandmother found, or he found my grandmother, whatever. And then he died, and then when he died, she married this one, and then she had these 3 children from him. And then he died.
Hey, that's it.
To what to where. I can't. I'm too much one. My tongue won't do it. I'm sorry. But anyhow, they had these 3 children, and then he got killed. If I'm not badly mistaken, I think a horse threw him and killed him. He was still a very young man. And then she married, which now Uncle Bill may tell you more. He's the only living child she has is Bill. And then his father's name was Nehemiah. And then what happened to him, he did not die, because he didn't die in 1928. And then, anyhow, something happened to their marriage, and then she married Ben Hall, and they had a set of twins. She was, I believe, in the vicinity of 55 years old when she gave birth to those twins. And of course, both of them had just this year, not too many months ago, one of the twins died. That's, you ain't got that thing running. You ain't got that running heavy.
Yes, it's on.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Okay. They can see my textbook real quick.
Any other stories that your grandmother's told you?
Well, no, not offhand. I mean, it was always a mystery to us why, you know, I've always questioned my grandmother's reasoning for giving her child away, but I understand that's fine. That's, like I said, that's Indian custom. Really, to her, she did not give him away. Indian way, he was already his son anyhow, because he was her brother, so that made him already the son. But I don't, no, I don't really know.
Now, which clan are you in then?
From which clan? The Takiwan, because this is what we got.
Okay,
going.
I mean, is that bear, deer, owl,
Well,
or is it elk?
it's the elk, because the word parakovit, I'm not pronouncing it right. If my sister was here from that, she can really pronounce it like it's supposed to be. And the translation for that means a red animal in water, standing in water or whatever. But Indians didn't go to great detail as to what their words meant, because one word could mean a dozen things. But it means a red animal in water.
Is that where the name Red Elk comes from?
That is where the name Red Elk comes from. And why they decided to translate it, and some of them go by the name of Red Elk, I do not know. You'd have to ask Uncle Bill that. And the older brother also, Frank, also took the name Red Elk. Although he wasn't the adopted one, he wasn't the one that was given the name Parakovit, but he also adopted the Red Elk part, which he was a Takiwan. He was not a Red Elk,
Now, where does the name Cardinal come
Like I said, that goes back to the day when they only had one name.
in? Now, does it?
And if he was ever given another name, I could not tell you. Just like Grandma Kusapia was never given but one name. That was it. The old man, the adopted grandfather, never was given them but one name. He did at Anadarko. He doesn't have two names in front. Only the children. It seems to be like the children is who they gave the second name to. And evidently, Karana was already too old to consider a child. I haven't tried to figure it up or anything, but he might have already been a man. 17, 18, 19 years old or whatever. So he stuck with just the one name, as far as I know.
And is Cardinal and Red Elk, how are those names interchangeable? Cardinal and Red Elk.
No, this Karana is like just it's like Bill, John. I mean, it's just,
Okay,
of course it means something, but I could not tell you what it
I was
means.
going to ask what
I
it
know.
translates.
Helen, some of them may be able to tell you what it means, but I do not know. And like I said, I know I've got a sister that could tell you, or her husband, because my half-sister, she's my half-sister from my daddy's first wife that was the Indian. She has helped, her and her husband has helped the Comanche language to be put into a book, and wrote down all their words, and she helped publish the book. So she could tell you. I could not. I do not know.
One last question. Now your grandfather owned or controlled 35 square miles.
Approximately, yeah. They called it the big pasture.
How was he able to control this much area?
He had people, members of the family that worked for him or helped him, to do this. He did not do it himself. Like I said, my daddy says the time he was 5 years old, he was out riding the big pasture and bedding down the cattle at night. So that's how they did it. I mean, by children and nephews or whatever, just different ones. I don't know how many of the kids older than him helped, if any, but that's how they did it.
He had this land because he was cheap.
I could not tell you how he got cheap to start off with. I do not know that. I mean, that's just a fact of life that I've always accepted, because that's what he was. He was one of, and Quanah Parker now was the chief over the Comanche clan, or the whole Comanche, but he was like a sub-chief, and he, in other words, he helped.
Would he be like a clan chief? Or?
Yes, that's what you would call it, a clan chief, yes. And see, that was another reason they say that back to the business, he raised, although he only adopted one, he basically raised about the 5 of those first children. He raised them like he was the most powerful. He was able to provide better or whatever. So he basically raised the first 5 children that his sister had. But it was not like you're talking about giving them away and never seen them. Like I said, they lived within a walking mile of each other, and they were back and forth. They were together all the time, and Daddy always knew who his real mother was, as well as he knew who his adopted mother was. So it was never nothing. It was nothing to say, well, I was given away, they didn't want me, or nothing like that. It was more or less, it was an acceptable thing that Indians done, more like maybe an honor or whatever, to be accepted.
Where was your mother from?
My mother, originally she was born in Pennsylvania. I could not even tell you. I'm working on trying to get a family tree on my mother, but all I can tell you, she was born in Pennsylvania, and she had a stepfather. She never knew her father at all. Her mother married when she was 5 years old, and they went to Nebraska, and from Nebraska they went to Washington State, and from Washington State they moved to Oklahoma, which just a mile up the road from where my daddy was living with his first wife and 5 children.
Her name was Carney.
Carney.